Imagine being able to build any software or apps that you actually need without waiting on developers and without learning how to code from scratch. Well, this is a reality right now thanks to Claude Code, which is one of the best AI coding tools you can learn right now in 2026. But if you're watching from the sidelines, it might feel like you're getting left behind. You see developers running multiple Claude Code instances at once, building entire features with a single prompt, and you might think it might seem way too technical for me. But here's the truth. Claude Code is a lot easier to understand than they first appear, even if you have zero coding experience. So in this video, we'll break it all down. What Claude Code actually is, how it works, what it can do, and finally the framework that I personally use to build step-by-step how to build your first complete project. By the end of this video, you go from zero to having a fully functional web application live on the internet. If you're new to this channel and don't know who I am, my name is Edwin. Chen. I'm an Oxford postgraduate, a Voiceflow certified expert, and over the past year, we've partnered with almost 50 different companies to eliminate their operational bottlenecks through our chat, voice, and AI automation workflow solutions so they can focus working on the business and not in the business. And if you're interested in working with me and my team, you're more than welcome to use the link in the description to book a free discovery call with us. So what I've done is actually I put together a complete document for you guys to go through together. I'm not going to cover every single one of the details. I'm just going to cover the main points. But if you want to go through with me with the video, or if you want to dive into it more in detail in your own time, you're more than welcome to grab this complete guide that I've done for you. It's 42 pages. You just need to use the link in the description and then just put in your name and email, just follow the instructions, and you should be able to get this complete guide. But yeah, let me just go through very quickly. First of all, explain what is Claude Code. So unlike many kind of beliefs, Claude Code is not just, oh, it's a coding tool, right? But it's kind of oversimplifying it. It's an AI agent that actually lives on your computer and can read, create, and modify files to build software projects for you. So literally, you can install it locally on your computer. It's not through like any website or anything. You can do it on a website if you want, but the main point is it can live inside your computer and it can create files for you and actually build software, build applications for you. And you may ask, well, how is it different to regular Claude? Well, the Claude is actually a chat interface actually that lives on a browser and an app. And if you ask Claude for code, you would need to actually copy and paste the code back and forth into your own IDE. For example, VS Code, if you don't know what IDE is, you don't have to worry about that, but it's just a place where you can edit and push for code. So as you can see, if I go into Claude, this is where I would just talk and do the Claude interface, right? And just chat normally. But with Claude Code, you can actually install it locally with 3 different methods. So the simplest way, which I'm going to be showing you in this video, is actually through the desktop app, which you can see that I have it locally, Claude desktop app. And if I just go to code, then it gives me Claude Code interface inside this app that I've installed in my Mac. The second way is through VS Code, which is a lot of what the other tutorials are doing some extensions, right? As you can see here, for Claude Code for VS Code, which you can actually install with Visual Studio Code. But again, I'm not going to go through it in this video because the goal is to make it as simple as possible for you guys to do your first project. The kind of more advanced way is actually through the terminal. Through the terminal, you can install it through the terminal, but it's more for advanced users. Let me actually just go through with you kind of the framework that I want before you even install Claude Code, because I see a lot of tutorials focusing a lot on the mechanics of Claude Code. Oh, install this, run this command, copy paste this, download this, but you're not actually understanding what is actually happening behind the scene. So I'm actually trying to teach you how to fish so you can fish for yourself. So this is very, very important that you get these concepts right and you actually understand these conceptual parts right so that you can actually properly use Claude Code to build actual apps, right? It's not just, oh, let me go to a video and then I just copy paste what they've done and that's it, right? I want you to actually understand how and why we're doing certain things, because that's what's going to build your skills and make you kind of grow in the long run and actually make actual successful applications in the long run. So I like to call it the AAA Framework. Funny that. It's just a framework that I like to use for organizing Claude Code projects, and it can adapt to any project types that you want. So the 3 A's. The first one is structure. So for example, for web apps, it's kind of like, what is the app structure? What are the different files and the different components for this specific app? How should we design this specific app? And if you're building automations or like NAM flows, okay, so what does the automation structure look like? What are the different tasks that I need to do in this automation? What is the data flow from one place to another? Am I sending message from my email account to a database, for example? So this basically answers what we're building and how it is organized. It's basically how we're going to organize a different structure, but by providing structure and files in our application. The second one is the agent instructions. So the agent obviously is the Claude Code agent, right? It's basically how should Claude work on this project? So you're basically giving the instructions to the AI agent of how the Claude should behave, what kind of coding standards or any kind of coding preferences or framework frameworks or components Claude Code should be following, and how should it make certain decisions, and what if errors happen, right? So what if Claude Code try to file code the apps and then some bugs happen? How do you want Claude Code to debug these apps? This is actually what you will provide the information to Claude Code. Remember, the more detail you can provide it, the better the output and the better success rate of Claude Code agent will be, because it's an AI agent at the end of the day. The third A I like to use is actions and iterations, meaning that what are the build processes, right? So what are the different milestones, phases? So phase 1, do this, phase 2, then we start building this, phase 3. So what are the step-by-step process the Claude Code agent should follow? What are the different strategies that I want to test, and how we can deploy this app to live? So how can we improve it over time? So the simplest way possible is how do we build, test, and improve this over time? These are the 3 A's that we will follow, the AAA framework. And in Claude Code, the most important thing that you need to know if you just want to take away one thing from this video is Claude.md. Every Claude Code project starts with a Claude.md file. This is extremely important for you to understand. So what is Claude.md? So .md just means it's a markdown format file. It's a markdown file. So basically a markdown is basically using hashtags to organize sections like headers, subheaders, so like big sections, subsections, and sub-subsections, right? So if you zoom in a little bit, you can see that the markdown looks like this. It goes like hashtag. So this is the big kind of title of the app. And you got like hashtag, which is kind of like a section, which is the project overview. You're describing what the project is, etc. This is what markdown is. That's what it means. Think of it like an instruction manual that Claude reads every time it works on your project. So it's basically a system prompt to Claude, telling Claude, hey, this is the project that we're doing. You should behave like this. I have these frameworks that you have to follow every time. This is what happens when you run into errors, etc. You're feeding Claude with all the context it has, right? Because Claude doesn't know what you want. You're basically telling Claude what you want out of it. Without it, Claude just starts from scratch every time with no project context. So basically, Claude, as you know, is a large language model, just like ChatGPT, and it's being trained over the internet with very generic data, right? So if you don't give it a Claude.md, you don't give it an instruction manual on how it should behave, it's just going to start pulling information from the internet and just give you a very generic result. That's not what you want. This is where AI slops happen. You want it to be as specific to your use case as possible. And kind of I can walk you through what the different structures in this Claude.md file. First one is project overview. So maybe I wanted to paragraph description of what this project is, what it does, and this gives Claude the big project context, right? So you will see in a bit later when we start actually building an actual application, you will see how the MD file is being structured. Then we have the tech stack, which is what technologies are being used right now. So this is a HTML, is it Python, is it React? Again, you don't need to know any of this. You can just ask, well, surprise, Claude, with the normal Claude chat, what technologies you should use, right? And then this will tell Claude what languages and frameworks to work with. If you're building a website, you should use HTML and CSS. If you're building some sort of custom software applications that's connected to some sort of backend, you should probably use Python. And the file structure is that the folder organization and what each folder means. Again, you're telling the Claude agent, hey, these are the folders that you work with. These are the different files. This is what each file means. This basically helps Claude know where to find things and where to create new files. It's very important that Claude knows, right? And your code standards, your preferences for how code should be written, like the naming conventions, any formatting rules that you want, comment styles. This basically ensures that it's throughout the applications, it's really consistent. Now, obviously, this is maybe a little bit advanced and you might need to know a little bit about coding. But again, you can just ask ChatGPT or like any other AI for the kind of the preferences if you have any. This is kind of optional and kind of very important to follow within the Claude.md is to keep it concise. So Claude can actually reliably follow about 150 to 200 instructions. More than that, it starts to miss things. So less than that, then you're not giving it enough guidance. So just to make sure that you put everything kind of concisely inside the Claude.md. Yes, provide as detailed as possible, but also be concise. So what you can do is what we call a progressive disclosure pattern. So this is just the right amount and the right format to put Claude so that it doesn't overload from too much information, but also it doesn't have too little information that it can't actually work out the kind of the perfect software. So you can use this platform. So there's kind of additional documentation tag, and you just say for specific tasks refers to these files. So you can basically say, hey, if you want to how to write and run tests, you basically write another markdown file. You can ask Claude to do that, to write this docs testing guide.md and refer to this file only when you're writing and running the test. For example, if I'm trying to deploy this, let's say a website live, hey, read this MD file, this markdown file, to know how to deploy stuff. So this way, Claude only reads detailed docs when he needs them, keeping the main Claude MD file focused and under the instruction limit. So that means that I'm not putting everything in there. It's only when this specific situation happens, let's say when I'm designing the API, then I go to this markdown file, right? At any other times, I'm not concerned about this. So this is just useless information I should keep away from the main Claude.md file, right? And how to create your first Claude MD, I'm going to go through with you in the meantime. I'm going to go through through with you when I'm building the first website. So basically, you want to say use the AAA framework as a template. So you have the project name, and then you need to define your framework inside the Claude.md. Is very important. So I like to use what I call the AAA method. So the app structure, as I mentioned, the instructions for the agent, how Claude should work here, actions and iterations, define the build process here. You can ask ChatGPT to help you format this as well if you want to kind of written out this section, but this is the general template that you should be using. And I'm going to skip over this, but basically there are different projects you can do. So you can do like static websites, you can do like automations, and you can do like web applications. For this specific video, I'm just going to go through a website that's going to be kind of the simplest case possible. And I guess one more thing to actually, before I kind of move on, is actually what we call skills and MCPs and tools. These are very important concept for you to understand. Now, tools, basically scripts, not necessarily Python. I just put Python here, but it can be Java, obviously, like other coding languages. Scripts are code that do something specific. So if you think of tools as like literally tools in the kitchen, like a blender is a tool that blends things together. A knife is a tool that cuts things, right? And each tool has a job. So if I have inside the Claude Code, I just say, basically tell it to have a send email.py.python file. Is this script basically sends an email through Gmail. If I have a YouTube automation going on and I have fetched YouTube data, then it gets data from the YouTube API. These are basically action scripts that does something when Claude run them, right? Then you have the MCP service, stand for Model Context Protocol if you don't know. This is basically a way for one app to communicate with another app. If you think of MCP service as like installing new apps on your phone, if you install the Gmail app, that gives you the ability to read emails and send emails. If I install Canada, I have the ability to view and create events. If I create a WhatsApp app, I now can talk to other people. So MCP is just a way of communicating with different applications, as I said. So if I have Gmail MCP, the Claude agent can now read emails, send emails, and kind of to search the inbox, right? You don't even need to know how this is. You just need to be aware that this is a way for Claude to have the ability to access different applications. Then we have skills, which are specialized instructions. This is very important. So skills, first of all, they are the markdown files with detailed instructions that make Claude better at specific tasks. The reason why we need skills, by the way, just to make it very clear, is because large language models like ChatGPT or Claude, they're trained over the internet over very generic data. They're not really specialized in everything. So let's say you are actually making a website. So obviously Claude knows very generic way of making websites, but obviously there are very specialized skills. For example, front-end design skills, very specific design skills pattern, or very specific marketing or like copywriting patterns that only an expert copywriter or an expert designer would know, and Claude wouldn't know that. So in order to avoid making it generic and make it actually really pop and really good, this is what skills are for. Think of skills as like specialized training menus. So you might have like a French cooking techniques menu that makes a chef better at French cuisine, or like a portrait photography guide that makes photography better at portraits, right? So it's basically upskilling the Claude agent. So for example, we have the canvas design skills. So to make Claude create better looking PDFs, we can have the front-end design skill, which is making Claude better at building prettier websites. So just to make it very clear, skills are not code that executes. They are instructions written in natural language. So it looks very like a Claude.md file. In fact, it actually is a markdown file that basically a bunch of instructions on how you should do certain things. It's literally just an instruction. So it's written in natural language to teach Claude how to approach certain tasks. And a website I really like how to use is to go to this link. And this actually gives you all the Claude Code skills template. So if you go down a little bit, you can see there's a front-end design. So basically how to make website prettier. Then you have the web app testing, for example, how to actually test different web apps, React best practices, PDF processing pro, DO6, how to create a nice document, how to create an Excel sheet, beautiful Excel sheet, etc. So this is different skills you can just look through over here and find the one that's best suited for your use case. All you have to do after you click on this, by the way, you can just add to stack. You can just copy this command. And if you go to terminal and you just paste this into your terminal and just click enter, this will automatically install the skill locally to your computer, which you can use later in the Claude. I'll show you how it works later when I go through the build. And the last thing that I want to mention is something called plan mode. So plan mode is a mode where, as you can see here, you can either ask, code, or plan. So plan mode is a mode where Claude does not execute the code, but instead it asks questions, explores solutions with you, and creates a detailed plan before writing any code. So in the regular mode, Claude starts coding immediately based on your prompt, whereas in planning mode, the Claude thinks deeply about your request, asks very clarifying questions to make sure it understands what you want, and then propose an approach and basically make you to basically approve it before touching any files. So it's actually really powerful too, especially if you know what you're doing, especially if you're, for example, a developer or you're someone technical. It's actually really good to have an overview of like, okay, this is what Claude is going to be doing, just to make sure that it's making sense and it's not doing something completely crazy or stupid. It's actually also safer if you're working on a large project to do this. So I would recommend always turn this on if you're working on any serious projects. This is just a sign that I want to mention. But yeah, this is kind of just like a very high level overview of Claude Code. Obviously, Obviously, you can go through this talk in a little bit more detail, but essentially, the most important lesson I want to point out is that the Claude Code is actually a tool. It's not magic, right? It's not just you type one sentence and then Claude will just do everything for you. That's not the case. It still requires very good understanding of how agent works and how to plan out all the different structure to make Claude Code work the best. So you need to understand what you want to build. You need to provide clear instructions. You need to review and test the output to make sure that it's actually making sense and not just garbage and just hallucinating and lying. And it requires you to make architecture decisions, right? The better you can understand web development concepts, the better you will be at it using Claude. But as a beginner, the easiest way to do this, again, is to talk to ChatGPT. Literally just use plan mode. As I said, have conversations with Claude. If you don't understand something, ask it. The thing that I really loved most is having run the Claude Code on the desktop app. At the same time, talk to it by using the learning mode. Here is use style learning. If you don't understand anything, just talk to it. You will learn something. So Claude Code is like having a very fast, capable junior developer. They can implement anything you describe, but you still need to be the senior dev who knows what to build and how it should work. So start simple, build consistently, and level up gradually. This is my biggest takeaway for you guys. So now let's actually go through the first project. So the first project, we are actually going to be building a website for a construction company called Build Right Construction. So how are we going to do that? Well, first of all, you need to go to claude.com.dano and you need to install this to your computer. So if you're Mac, Windows, you just install it. And then after you install it, as I've shown you earlier, you just need to go to the code. And from here, you can just click on file. And here you will ask you to select which file that Claude Code would want to work on. So I would highly recommend, to be fair, how you wouldn't, if you go to your file and you just click on file, just create a new folder and just call it landing, right? And then from here, I just click select this and I just go to downloads and I go to that landing website. And now it's Claude Code is working and aware of this folder. Now, the second thing I would want to do is basically create the Claude.empty prompt. So I've already kind of created this prompt, but I can go through this quickly. You can just copy paste this into here if you want. So I'll just say, click on this command. So I'll just say create my Claude.empty file and just have a quotation mark. And then I'm just going to copy paste this prompt. I'm going to paste it here, but I can just walk through with you kind of what this means. So we're building a professional single page website, right? Again, I have shown to you earlier that it should start with the project name in the description, AAA method. So here I said it's a professional single page website for Build Right Construction, a residential commercial construction company. So again, this is just a made-up company, but again, it can adjust for any businesses. The site showcase services, team, portfolio, and make it easy for potential clients to contact through WhatsApp. This is the kind of the main call to action, if you will. Both with no backend requirements or interactions, either WhatsApp or smooth scroll notification. The website must use the front-end design skill to create a bold, distinctive aesthetics to avoid generic AI design patterns. The construction industry demands strength, reliability, professionalism. Translate this into brutalist industrial design with modern sophistication. So it's basically telling the Claude that you should use the skill folder as well. Speaking of which, all you have to do is go to this template. And what I'm going to do is going to click on this, the front-end design. I'm going to click on this. I'm going to fill details. Now, all you have to do is basically copy this into the terminal as I've shown you to install this. But then another easiest way, if you want as well, is basically just copy this code and then just basically paste it into a text editor. So I use cursor and I just paste it into this text editor. And all I have to do is, because I already have the markdown file called skill.md, all I have to do is kind of drag the skill.md into the landing website folder. So now Claude has access to this skill, this instructions on how to build prettier websites inside its folder. Then I basically break down the AAA method, the app structure, the technical organizations, the file organization and components. The agent instruction basically is teaching what is the AAA method to the Claude agent. Then I start by using A1, the app structure, basically defining the company, the industry, location, specialities, business goals, etc. I then explain the tech stack. And here I also kind of plan out the file structure. So you start with the Claude.md this file, then the main page, and then you have the CSS. If you don't know what CSS is, you don't actually need to know too much about it. But what it is, basically a style code for the website, defines the animations, how it looks, the colors, the spacing, the fonts, kind of the front end facing how it looks, and this aesthetics is what's defined by the CSS script. Then you also have the JavaScript, which basically are some scripts that you can run to basically trigger certain animations, etc. And you then have the Claude skill, so called the skill.md, to basically design how to build a prettier website. And then you have the page section, define what your header is, what your hero section is in the website, the different service sections, the different services that you're providing, all the business information, how you want your website to be structured should be provided into this prompt. And then we have the agent instructions, so like they apply the front-end design skill folder to make it look better, etc. And I'm not going to go for all of it, but essentially you can see that the rest of the patterns, right? You also define the development workflow. Phase 1, you should do the design thinking. Phase Phase 2, you should structure it with the HTML. Phase 3, you should basically apply the aesthetic style, the colors and everything, and the animation, and then polish it, etc. You then define the code standards, right? You basically give them actions as well, as I mentioned. And more importantly, this is actually very important. A very good habit to put in the prompt is to have a testing checklist. So like these are the different checklists that it must tick before moving forward to ensure that it's actually meeting all the necessary user requirements, right? And to make sure it's functional, responsive on mobile, on tablet, on your iPad, and your desktop as well, right? And then you define what success criteria looks like, what success looks like, right? Someone say, look at this and wow, that's beautiful, etc. So yeah, this is basically the master Claude.md prompt. And I'm not going to click Sonnet 4.5 because Opus is very expensive. And from here, you can click on playing mode if you want. But for now, just to make it quicker, I'm just going to click on ask and I'm just going to run this vote. And I'm going to click on trust workspace. And now it's basically running this command. Now I get it. It might look very overwhelming with like, oh, bash, what does that mean? And basically it's telling you what it's doing. You don't necessarily need to understand it necessarily. What it does is basically following the instructions, as you will see. Now, this is what we talk about with the permissions. It's basically allow Claude to write Claude.md. I'm just going to click allow always for session. Ideally, if you're a beginner and you don't really not too sure, just click on allow once so that every time you can review it to make sure that it's exactly what you want it. But for now, I know this is a simple project, so I'm just going to click on always allow for session. Then as you can see, you can say Claude.md has been created. So it created the Claude.md file. It got through the AAA framework, and now the file is ready to guide the website build. Want me to start building this site now? I'll just say yes. So it created the markdown file, but now it's going to be reading the markdown file and actually build the entire site. So I can see there's a list of to-do lists. Claude Code is very good at having a list of to-do lists. I'm just going to click on always allow for session. But basically, there's a bunch of to-do lists that it needs to fulfill before finalizing the website. So for example, you can see setting up the structure, creating the front-end design, build the HTML, which is the backend, create the layout components and animations to make it responsive on mobile as well, test and polish, etc. So once it's done something, what it will do is that it will actually cross out the task to make sure that it's done. So you know exactly where the Claude Code agent is at right now. You can see there's design thinking, right? Because we prompted, remember, we prompted phase 1, you must do the design. So it is actually thinking on how to do the design based on the skills, folder, etc. So now, as you can see, it has basically finished it. So I skip about a little bit because it was waiting for quite a long time. And it basically has the Claude.md, it read the front-end skill reference, basically all the different styles. And yeah, if you look back at this folder, you can see that there is the Claude.md file, the CSS, which is the different colors, the animations, etc., the JavaScript to make sure everything is smoothly running, the Claude, and you have the skills folder. And then you basically have the index.html. So all you have to do is basically click on that. And now it basically takes you to the website, right? Yeah, not bad. I mean, obviously it could be improved a little bit better, but you can see that it's quite a modern design. You got the services, our services, kitchen and bath, extensions, custom contemporary. Obviously, this is kind of fake data, right? So obviously the expert team, we don't have the photos yet. Obviously, we can drag the images of people if we want, the lead contractor, sign contractor, etc. Why choose us, what the client says, ready to start your project. And if you click on chat on WhatsApp, it actually would start to watch it with a random number. So you can just open the app inside WhatsApp. So this is actually quite a cool feature. But yeah, congratulations, you just finished building your first website. By the way, just to make it clear, this is kind of locally an HTML file, meaning that it just runs locally on your computer, right? If I want to make it deploy and actually make it public, the easiest way I found to do it is actually through Netlify, app.netlify.com, right? If you go and sign up an account, all you have to do is to go to your Finder. If I just kind of go back to the website, go to the Finder, and all I have to do is click the entire landing page from here to here. I literally just drag the folder into here. It will say it's uploading. Please don't refresh. And now it has been deployed, right? If I go to this link, monumental.netlify.app, this is publicly available now on the website, as you can see. So this is actually how you would deploy it. Obviously, there are more advanced configurations you can build. It's been published, but if you want, you can also buy like a custom domain so that this doesn't just go to like netlify.app. You can go to domain management and actually own your own custom domain, but you need to pay money for that. But yeah, this is actually the simplest way to build a website, web app project. Congratulations, you just built your first Claude Code project. And I would highly recommend you go through the entire document to work on more advanced projects, etc., to kind of test your understanding of Claude Code. But hopefully this has given you some idea on how you can start using Claude Code, kind of the simplest ways possible to start building and working on apps and ideas. And yeah, if you enjoyed this kind of content, remember to like, comment, subscribe. And yeah, if you want to implement some sort of AI solutions or applications ideas for your business, you're more than welcome to use the link description to book a call with me and my team so we can discuss some project ideas. If you enjoy this kind of content, again, maybe I will do more Claude Code videos in the future. But yeah, this is for me, and I'll see you in the next one.